in the same lot. Now, let me just dive a little deeper into privacy. So, the key thing you want to consider is access. So, you're going to have people accessing their units from where they park, and you're going to have people accessing their units from the sidewalk. Because if you bring a guest over, they're coming from the sidewalk. Some people have a driveway in the front, some people have an alley in the back. If you're lucky enough, you have both, and that really creates the best opportunity here. But you're always going to have access from the sidewalk because if you have a guest come by, they're going to come from the sidewalk. If you have a solicitor, they're coming from the sidewalk. So all the units need access from the sidewalk. And then if you have a driveway, the front unit gets access from the driveway. If you have an alley like I do, the people who park in the alley would have access from the alley. So if you have a unit in the back of the property, they access from the alley parking, but they also need a pathway from the street, from the sidewalk, where their guests would access. So the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So ideally, you want to provide one entire side yard where you can get cross access from the alley if you have it, and also from the sidewalk. That becomes the most efficient way to have this privacy. And then once you establish that path of access, you don't want your windows facing that path of access because you don't want to be chilling in your living room and then all of a sudden, my brother comes home and he's walking right past a window in your living room. That would be like an awkward scenario. But there's certainly solutions for this. If you did a 2-story ADU, it would be a non-consideration. You could do frosted windows. You could do clear story windows, which are above eye line, and then you'd never notice somebody was walking. So then it comes down to kind of like the smaller details of how you design these things once you have established that path of access. So there's lots of strategies to maintain privacy, even while increasing density on a property.
Totally. That makes sense. And we definitely don't want to recreate the whole living with your parents living situation just in reverse opposite stages of life. So definitely that is one reason why privacy would of course be very important. We've been talking a lot of theory and abstractly, I feel like so far. Do you have maybe an example from the portfolio of the studio we can look at to illustrate what this would mean for prospective clients considering this type of a project?
Okay, so this is a project we recently finished. This is called the Bancroft ADU and Garage. We did some cool things on this project. Since it's one of our newer finished projects, I thought this would be a good one to show you some examples. So these are some photos of the project. Let me just orientate you. Here's an existing dwelling unit. Let me see if we have a photo. Okay, so do we have a street photo? Okay, so here's the existing home. It's kind of a quasi-historic craftsman home. And behind that, we built this ADU. So I want to point out a couple things here. There is a driveway in the front, which you could see in this rendering. So the person who is my client, who lives in the front house, they access their property through the driveway in the front. And the front door is like kind of right over here. Let me see if I have a better image of this. Okay, so here's the driveway. That comes from the street. And then here's their home, and they'll enter through the front. And the person who lives here also has access to this backyard. Now, here's the new ADU we built, and the new ADU enters the home from here, and they have alley access here, so we've provided one parallel parking space here. So they'll park here and enter their home here, while the property owner parks here and enters their home at the front. In this scenario, we actually don't need really any of that cross lot access. So we do have a clear pathway here, but they're so close to the corner. This is one of the rare exceptions where any guests that this tenant has will come from the corner and then down the alley, and they'll enter here. So by creating two distinctly separate formal entries, which is where you enter the home as a guest, and informal entries, which is where you park and then enter the home as a homeowner, there's no overlap here. They have complete privacy. Now, you may say, well, what about this backyard? Isn't this ADU looking down at the backyard, creating less privacy for the homeowner in the backyard? Well, that was one of the concerns we took into consideration as we went through the design phase. So I want to see if I have a good image here, which shows you how much privacy they would have in the backyard. So this is maybe the best photo I have to show this, but you see we've lifted the windows here above eye line. So the backyard is kind of down here, and the tenants in this unit are not tall enough. They're just like their standard height, but you'd have to be like 7 feet tall to get your eyes up here and then see down into the backyard. So by lifting the windows in the area where we do not want the view, we're able to establish that privacy. These windows look towards the alley, so there's plenty of privacy in that direction. And then here we have a balcony, which is on the front of the house. You can kind of see here. So they do have a view towards the driveway. And this is just an AI turf. The driveway was not completed when the photos were taken, but there is a driveway here. So the only like conflict of privacy here is if the tenants up here are looking down at the driveway, which is really kind of a non-issue. There's also a garage here, so the homeowner has access to the garage. And when they enter the garage, they exit back towards their backyard, and then they can enter through the back of their house right over here, back through that like exterior space. We even took this one step further, and on the ground floor of this two-story ADU, there's a second bedroom, and that bedroom was designed to be potentially rented by the tenants, but also have the flexibility to be used as a home office space by the homeowner. So we've kind of set up this floor plan where that one room on the ground floor could be used either way. So I guess that's a good example. This is the window of that office space, and again, it's above eye level. So even if you're a tenant renting that office space, you do not have a line of sight into the backyard. So maybe that's a good example of how to establish privacy. Here's that parking space through having non-conflicting points of access for the home.
I agree. I think that's a very solid example.